to start off with a couple caveats that this is a little bit different than the other frameworks that you've seen so far today. In the first place, this is very much a work in progress. It's not a final framework. So we're presenting where we are, some of the things that we're struggling with, and some of the things we hope to get out of this discussion today. The other thing is that I'm from UBC. I'm from the Center for Interactive Research on Sustainability. And although we do a lot of work with partners, and this is very much application is the focus of this project, and we've done a lot of work. Perkins and Will is one of our long-term partners in this area, as is Dialogue and Integral Group. At the heart, this really is an academic research project. So a little different than some of these other ones. So the Regenerative Neighborhoods project is what we've been working on here. It's our sort of strategic framework type of project. And this came very much out of the experiences in the design and development over almost a decade of the SERS building itself out of UBC. So both positive, not so positive lessons learned and experiences realized that a neighborhood is a much more effective scale of work at than building for a lot of the issues that we're struggling with. But that at the same time, a city is a little bit too complex. Again, a neighborhood is kind of a more workable scale. It's also a scale that's very relatable. We found that people really understand, love, and enjoy their neighborhoods. It's something where it's a scale which people have human relationships, and it's because a lot of what we've been doing through this project is so people-focused, that's become a huge aspect for us to go forward. So one of the key things about this project is that it's neither performance nor process-based, it's both. So recognizing both the necessity of having performance goals and criteria, but also that the process that you use to realize any project or any assessment is integral to those goals themselves, and that it's a highly evolving process over time. So the performance goals can be set internally by a project team that can be the influence of larger factors, all sorts of jurisdictional regulations, or goals set anywhere up to the federal level down to the community level will influence any project, any neighborhood, how it's developing. Similarly, the process, the people who are involved, the capabilities they have, the teams, the experience, the funding will all influence that, and that as your sort of experience grows, essentially your reach expands. You're able to hit higher targets as you kind of become more familiar with what you're doing. So kind of going along with that is recognizing that neighborhoods are not single entities. It's not a master plan that you do once and then it's done. They're evolving trajectories, and every neighborhood starts at a different place, whether it's a new one or whether it's one that's been there for 1,000 years, or long-term in North America, which is 100, 200. And that the trajectories of all of these neighborhoods are influenced not only by where they started, but by a whole combination of factors that are both internally and externally driven. So there's forces that are acting on the neighborhood, and there are also sort of self-evolving and self-organizing things that are coming out of the neighborhood itself, and that this is a very specific process for each project, each neighborhood, each context. So the way we work through this is, next slide, is recognizing that you don't change the entire neighborhood all at once. You do something to it. You have an intervention. And that intervention will have an impact over time, not all at once. Some will have immediate influences on certain things, and then there will be essentially a ripple effect over time and across scales. And this is both environmental and social, economic, all of these sort of areas. So what we've been focusing on through this project is looking at how do you figure out what that intervention is and what it's going to do, and how do you use that intervention as a way to create a regenerative neighborhood in the long run? So these interventions can be anything from buildings. Originally we started looking at what if you add a building, what does that do to the neighborhood? And over the last year or so, this has really expanded to a more, I guess, broad categorization of the intervention. So we're trying to develop a framework that can really adapt to different situations. What if you add a building to the neighborhood, an infrastructure? There are policies either internally or externally driven, or community initiatives. There's been a lot of examples recently in Vancouver of excellent community-driven things that are really changing things. And this gets a little bit to who we're trying to work with in terms of stakeholder groups, and that we're not creating a single package that's meant to be used all at once, but we really want to create a set of say, strategic ideas and concepts and tools that people can draw on to fit their specific context of their neighborhood and their specific skill sets and capabilities. Next one. So I'll just go through these last few really quickly, but these are the performance areas that over the last year we've started focusing on. So if you look at your intervention and say across these areas, what are we doing? How are we doing? Who's involved in this? What are the impacts in these different areas throughout your neighborhood? We had a series of students working with us last summer that went through and worked with municipalities in the area and looked at specific projects that were considered highly sustainable and did sort of qualitative survey assessments of how those projects ranked across these different areas, how those neighborhoods ranked, having these projects in them, kind of doing a before and after comparison and trying to start to get an idea of what that really meant on a project scale. And then this is my last slide. So this is really the area that we're focusing on now. So we have a pretty good understanding of the relationship between your intervention and your performance categories. There's many tools out there. There's many ways that you can kind of map that. But there's no guarantee that if your project performs well in those categories, you're going to lead to a regenerative neighborhood in the future. So we're really starting to look at how do you measure success, what measures success, how do you measure success evolving over time, how do you deal with that type of uncertainty, and really what can you do now that's an effective and useful and relevant way to move forward. That's where I'm struggling.
Great.